Land management, land stewardship has been in my bones since I was a little kid. And I used to come to this farm. I've come every summer of my life for a month or longer. I had a wonderful great grandmother who was a role model in my life for many years, and she was always praiseworthy for whatever I did. I'd get up at 6 in the morning and rake a field just for the fun of it. So it's always been, that stewardship has always been with me. My name is Tim Stout. I'm the owner with my brother of Jockey Hill Farm here in Shrewsbury, Vermont. It's a farm that's been in the family for 84 years. When I retired about 5 years ago, I started looking at what else can we do with this land to preserve it for future generations. And what really struck home was coming down here one day right in the early days of COVID, shortly after my first grandson was born, and thinking, wow, we've got all this land and it doesn't get used a whole lot. How can we change that around? And how can we preserve it and adapt to changes that we're seeing very quickly? This field behind me is called Allison's Meadow, which is named after my older daughter who lives in San Diego. It used to be called the young stock pasture. The young cows used to graze. We used to mow this every year, but now we'll mow it every 3 years. We've mowed right up to the trees, and the intent going forward is to allow a buffer zone between the field and the forest for habitat and for other reasons, but have a gradual buffer from the lower elevation of the meadow to the higher elevation of the trees. We don't have invasive pests yet. They're coming for us, but they're not here. We just have invasive plants and lots of them. Over here, we have one of our climate resilient tree plantings. We have about 60 trees here of different species. We're seeing more bird life, more insects, more butterflies coming in. That type of strategy we're looking at applying to most of the fields that are on Jockey Hill Farm. About 6 years ago, while I was still in my full-time career, started digging into what's called forest carbon. Combined here in Vermont, about 50% of the carbon that's emitted in the state is absorbed by our forests. So they're a major natural climate solution. After a few years of studying it, working very closely with professors at UVM and University of Massachusetts and other organizations, I decided to start a small nonprofit that would help educate landowners about forest carbon. It's been a glorious ride because it's taken me much deeper into the woods and into our land in general, and at the same time started using drones quite a bit to film the land and how it's evolving. Now I have my own small business for drone work for landowners so that they can have a sense of what do they own. So we're standing right now in a 43-acre maple grove, and we have a sugar maker who leases the stand from us. Been tapped probably since the late 1800s, of course initially with buckets and now with extensive tubing. One of the mistakes we made was cutting all the understory. We have a whole bed of ferns over about 60% of this maple stand. Other parts of the maple stand have understory, mid-story, beautiful canopy. We want to bring this all back to that condition. Our intent is to continually help the understory, the mid-story, and make it as vibrant a community as possible. This is a great indication of the significance of erosion on our property. As I mentioned, our land has an elevation gain of about 600 feet due to the heavy rain last July and then again in December. We started to see significant erosion. This was 12 feet wide. Now it's over 45 feet wide in sections. It's one of those climate challenges that we have that's hard to adapt to. Back at the time of Tropical Storm Irene, the stream got dredged, straightened out a little bit too much, so the velocity of the stream increases significantly, so it causes more erosion, more rocks coming down in the field. So it's interesting over time how one little adjustment to climate change, if you don't really work with a hydrologist, can affect everything else. It's a very complex industry, and I think that's underestimated by a lot of people, certainly by myself. I think the challenge we have in the forestry community and among landowners is how to educate the general public about why we're managing the forest the way we are. But I look at all the work that we've done according to our land management plans, and it's inspiring. I think we have a robust, resilient forest here, in large part because of the way the forests have been managed. But it's hard for some people, and me definitely initially, to grasp why would we cut trees? We selectively cut trees, and we do small cuts to introduce greater diversity.
Time is coming, I must be leaving.
I figure I have another 15, 20 years of managing the land. It's getting more and more challenging because of the climate change impacts. I would love to envision in 60 years that we still have a resilient forest. I would love it to be a retreat for future generations in my family, but also for the general public. My hope also is that landowners see what we're doing, hear what we're doing, and decide, that doesn't work for me. This is what I do. And that's the fun of this lovely group of landowners. I mean, we own 80% of the land in Vermont. I learn as much from other landowners as much more from them than they probably learn from me. We all have different experiences, but we all have this huge passion for our land. It's an enormously satisfying undertaking.